On January 15, 2022, an elderly man suddenly noticed his pet dog chewing on something inside a garbage bag on the street, so he quickly rushed over and pulled the dog away. Out of curiosity, when the old man opened up the plastic bag, what he saw made him drop to the ground in sheer terror. Inside the bag was the dead body of a young woman. The police immediately cordoned off the entire area. For Detective Ajun, the troubling part was that there were no CCTV cameras where the body was dumped. If it weren't for the dog, the body might never have caught anyone's attention. What kind of intense hostility could make a killer unleash such cruelty on an innocent young woman? Let's rewind back to that fateful night. Ji-yoon was walking home alone from work. That day was her 20th birthday, and her parents were busy at home preparing for her celebration. At that moment, her father, Mr. White, had no idea that his daughter was facing massive danger down the alley. When Mr. White finally saw his daughter again, she was already a cold corpse. That joyful birthday instantly turned into his daughter's death day. The forensic report revealed that the victim died of asphyxiation and had not suffered any physical abuse prior to death. However, the cut marks on the victim's face were completely precise, and even the length of the cuts was identical everywhere, leading to the suspicion that the killer was someone highly skilled at butchering meat. Ah-jun quickly went to Mr. White to ask if Ji-yoon had any enemies or if she knew anyone skilled with a knife. Right then, the wife suddenly blurted something out, but before Ah-jun could ask, Mr. White hurriedly pulled her away. Ah-jun realized they were trying to hide something. Soon, his colleagues uncovered a crucial clue. Mr. White used to be in the Special Forces and now runs a food company located very close to where Ji-yoon's body was found. Ah-jun quickly drove to the food company. There, he saw that most of the workers were foreigners. Seeing the workers skillfully butchering meat made Ah-jun think the killer might be hiding right among them. At that exact moment, the manager walked up from behind. Ah-jun flashed his police badge and asked if someone named Old Jung worked there. Hearing the name Old Jung, one of the workers got visibly nervous. Ah-jun's eyes locked onto that guy standing in the corner. Pretending not to notice so as not to tip him off, Ah-jun walked out of the factory. When the guy finished his shift, snuck out and called Old Jung on the phone. Ah-jun caught him in the act. Phone records revealed that Old Jung's full name was Jung Man-chun. At the same time, other police colleagues received news that a delivery rider captured footage from his bike camera. When he rode through that alley, the killer was clearly visible, and that exact person was Jung Man-chun. Ah-jun showed him the video footage and started interrogating him, but the guy kept denying everything. Since he didn't have an ID card, Ah-jun figured out he was an illegal immigrant. Under police pressure, he finally spilled where Old Jung was hiding. Ah-jun sneaked into the house, but Old Jung wasn't there. Just as he let his guard down, Old Jung suddenly lunged from behind and attacked Ah-jun with a knife. Ah-jun kicked him straight to the floor. Facing Old Jung's resistance, Ah-jun grabbed a water pipe lying on the floor and started mercilessly beating him. After a fierce struggle, Ah-jun successfully managed to subdue him. As Old Jung was being arrested, Mr. White sat inside his car watching everything unfold clearly. Under police interrogation, Old Jung denied everything, claiming he didn't kill Ji-yoon. Yet he still had a deep connection to the case, so the police forwarded the case to court. Judge Yoo Sung-hoon granted an open trial. Yoo Sung-hoon wasn't just a famous judge, he was also Detective Ah-jun's older brother. Before the trial began, 9 ordinary citizens were randomly selected as jurors. They were Choi Yun-ji, a school employee, Hae Jin, the police commissioner's daughter, taxi driver Choi, a Japanese restaurant chef, a radio reporter, retired President Kang, a fortune teller, manager An with a limp, and Ah-ho, an ordinary worker. The votes of these 9 people would decide the final verdict, and these seemingly unfamiliar 9 people were also on the killer's upcoming target list. Responding to the prosecution's questions, Old Jung explained that he threatened Ji-yoon with a knife only because Mr. White withheld his wages. He hadn't killed anyone, just wanted to scare Mr. White. Seeing that no one believed him, Old Jung blurted out excitedly that there were other people present at the time. When he held the knife to Ji-yoon's throat, a private car happened to drive past. Seizing the opportunity, Ji-yoon broke free, and both of them ran out of the alley. The private car was parked right nearby, and Ji-yoon frantically begged the driver for help. help. The driver opened the door and saved her. Looking through the window, Old Jung saw that the driver was none other than Ah-jun himself. Therefore, Old Jung claimed that Ah-jun was the real killer. But when the judge asked for the car model, Old Jung fumbled and couldn't get it right. Murmurs broke out across the courtroom, everyone thinking he was trying to frame the very cop who arrested him. Promptly, Ah-jun was called in as a witness. He told the judge that the person who took Jung Man-chun's photo was a delivery rider, not a private car. Ah-jun further investigated and found out that Jung Man-chun had previously slashed both sides of his wife's face, and those scars matched Ji-eun's facial cuts down to a T. This was more than enough proof that Jung Man-chun was the killer. Once the hearings concluded, the jurors went into deliberation. Everyone agreed that Jung Man-chun was the killer, except for Yeonji, who felt that based on his behavior in court, Jung Man-chun didn't seem to be lying. But ultimately, the judge delivered the verdict that the murder charge against Jung Man-chun was proven, sentencing him to life in prison. Flying into a rage, Jung Man-chun threw a tantrum in court and warned the jurors present. Everyone thought it was over, but as he was being led away to jail, Old Jung pulled a piece of paper from his pocket. Right at that moment, a motorcycle suddenly came out of nowhere and caused an accident. When the police arrived at the scene, Old Jung had vanished into thin air. Ah-jun spotted a motorcycle rear-view mirror lying nearby. Remembering what Old Jung said in court, he realized the killer had planned everything out beforehand. Fearing Old Jung might exact revenge on the judge, Ah-jun quickly called his brother. Returning to his office, Yoo Sung-hoon noticed that the juror list page was torn. It suddenly hit him that during the courtroom chaos, Jung Man-chun had ripped off half the list. Cross-referencing that list, Yeonji and Haejin could be in danger at any moment. To avert any disaster, Yoo Sung-hoon alerted all the jurors. Yeonji just then found out that the suspect had escaped. Terrified, she rushed back home. Just as she was getting ready to use the washroom, she caught a glimpse of a shadow behind her. Walking cautiously forward, Yeonji saw Old Jung standing right behind her. The next day, police surrounded Yeonji's apartment. She was being held hostage by Jung Man-chun. Old Jung demanded that the president come and declare him innocent. Seizing the opportunity, Ah-jun climbed onto the roof of the adjacent building, and just as he planned to shoot, Old Jung dragged Yeonji back inside. Distracted for a split second, Yeonji kicked him down and bolted into the bathroom. Going completely berserk, Old Jung smashed a potted plant with a glass. Seeing everything, Ah-jun made a flying leap across to the neighboring rooftop and smashed through the door in the nick of time. He fired a single shot, striking Old Jung in the shoulder. When Old Jung was taken to the hospital, Mr. White showed up there with his men to exact revenge. He wanted to punish the killer who murdered his daughter with his own hands. Mr. White pulled out an injection, the kind used for intense interrogations of criminals. Trembling in fear, Old Jung began to beg for mercy. He said that he didn't kill Ji-eun, and the audio recording of the conversation between him and the killer is still saved with him. When Mr. White had asked him what the killer's name was, Old Jung had said his name was Eun-jae. Hearing this name, Mr. White understood the killer's true motive in a split second. He quickly went to the police commissioner and played that audio recording to him. And the story of this character, Eun-jae, started 20 years ago. Mr. White was the director of the Hope Orphanage back then. The kids there spent their lives like living hell for a long time. They weren't allowed to be called by their names. They were only addressed by codes or numbers. The boys were made to do heavy labor, and the girls were sent to the neighboring villa, where they became victims of the upper class's twisted pleasures. If anyone disobeyed, they were subjected to unspeakable torture. If they were lucky, dead children were buried behind the mountain, and if they were unlucky, they were sold to anatomy labs for dissection. Among those children, one somehow managed to escape from there and reach the police. The precinct's police chief went in person to see his condition and even spent money out of his own pocket to buy him bread and milk. After he ate his fill, the chief told him he would drive him home in his car. The boy fell fast asleep peacefully in the back seat of the car, but who knew that the chief actually turned the car around and took him right back to that orphanage. The boy woke up to find that the chief and the orphanage director had already collided. convoluted. The boy completely broke down, knowing that only brutal beatings awaited him ahead, because according to the rules, the punishment for sneaking away and escaping was to be beaten to death. However, at that time, the director's wife was pregnant, so to earn good karma for her unborn child, she let the boy off the hook. But the boy didn't give up trying to escape. Instead, he found a brilliant route out. He made a plan with his 4 friends that they would escape in 3 days. But unfortunately, one of their own companions leaked everything to the director. The night they were supposed to escape, the director purposely gave them a chance and unleashed hunting dogs behind them. While running, Unjai accidentally fell into a deep pit. At that exact moment, the director's whistle could be heard. The boy told his friends to go ahead, and he jumped down himself to rescue Unjai. To escape from the hunting dogs, they smeared mud all over themselves so the dogs couldn't catch their scent. The dogs came extremely close, and the 2 of them lay there holding their breath. Luckily, the director called the dogs back then, and this time the boy and Unjai survived. But the fate of the other companions was terrible. One of them got stuck in a foot trap, and the other 2 ran out onto the road only to be run over by a car coming from the opposite direction. That car belonged to the orphanage manager. They picked up the boy's body and tossed it to the dogs as food. Unjai and his friend were hiding under a wooden plank at that moment. When the blood dripped onto their faces, the fire of revenge ignited inside Unjai right then and there. 20 years later, when Mr. White's daughter was brutally murdered, hearing the killer's name was Unjai made him panic instantly, because if Unjai wanted revenge, the next target would be someone from the commissioner's family. Since the commissioner had violated Unjai's older sister in that villa, the commissioner drove quickly to his grandson's school. It turned out the kid wasn't in class.
The killer had shown up there just a few minutes prior. Panicking, the commissioner started searching frantically for his grandson. The good news was the kid's life wasn't in danger. He pulled out some food the killer had given him from his bag, which looked just like that bread and milk from 20 years ago. This was clearly a threat from the killer to the commissioner. Meanwhile, when old Jung escaped 3 days ago, the judge called all the jurors, but only Hei Jin didn't reply. She was the police commissioner's daughter. When Hei Jin's body was found, it turned out she was dumped in a park, and her condition was identical to Mr. White's daughter. The commissioner never imagined karma would strike back this fast. He told Oh Jung that he was worried about his son's safety, so he hoped Ah Jun would help protect his family. When Ah Jun learned that the real recording was hidden by Oh Jung at his house, a mysterious smile appeared on his face. Within moments, Oh Jung fell from the roof and died. This scene unfolded right before Ah Jun's eyes. He quickly looked up and saw a shadow slipping away fast. But when he sprinted up to the roof, there was no one there, only the on-duty police officer lying injured. Ah Jun immediately called the police. According to the on-duty police officer's statement, Ah Jun was the last person who had contact with Oh Jung. One of Ah Jun's buttons was found at the scene, and in an instant, Ah Jun became the prime suspect. The scene shifted. The killer himself knocked on the door of Oh Jung's house. When the police arrived there, they witnessed an unbelievable sight. Ah Jun was stabbing a woman in the stomach with a knife. Before he could explain anything, the police officer cocked his gun and prepared to fire, and a scuffle broke out between the two. Ah Jun never imagined that his own colleague would shoot at him. Ah Jun forcefully shoved him away and used that opportunity to escape from the house. As a result, he was fully branded as a criminal and a suspect. The commissioner immediately issued orders to arrest Ah Jun, but the captain refused to believe that Ah Jun could kill anyone. Still, orders had to be followed, so the captain went to Ah Jun's house with his team. Hearing that a warrant had been issued to catch her son, his mother and father were stunned. But what nobody expected was that Ah Jun had actually been kidnapped beforehand. While escaping from old Jung's house, someone had slipped a bag over his head from behind. Regaining consciousness, Ah Jun heard the sound of whistling. He had been kidnapped by Mr. White himself. Seeing the familiar locket around Ah Jun's neck, Mr. White became certain that Ah Jun was that Unjae who murdered his daughter. As Mr. White advanced toward him with a sharp knife, Ah Jun started fighting back out of pure survival instinct. Being a police-trained guy, the man he had with him couldn't do much. Ah-jun forcefully pushed his way deep into the forest. Cornered by their chase, he reached the edge of a cliff and jumped down without a moment's hesitation. A short while later, dragging his injured body, Ah-jun reached a telephone booth, but he couldn't figure out who to call. It suddenly hit him that Yeonji, whom he had saved once, had given her a card. Ah-jun dialed that number. To repay him for saving her life, Yeonji showed up right on time. But the moment she got Ah-jun into the car, Mr. White and his man arrived there. Luckily, Yeonji managed to fool them with her stellar acting. Afterward, Yeonji hid Ah-jun in a warehouse attic. After a few days of nursing, Ah-jun's body recovered significantly. Watching the news, he learned he was now a most wanted criminal. He tried to call his subordinate to check in, but Officer G snatched his phone away. The subordinate somehow saved his skin by claiming it was his new girlfriend's phone. When Officer G called that number back, Yeonji's voice was heard on the other end, which cleared their suspicions. Meanwhile, because Ah-jun turned out to be a criminal, his older brother landed in trouble too. The public was protesting against him over the wrongful verdict in Oh Jung's case, and even his mother's eligibility for the National Assembly nomination was revoked. At night, Ah-jun suffered a terrible headache. Recalling Mr. White's words, he felt that someone really might be framing him by impersonating his identity. The truth was, Ah-jun's childhood name was indeed Un-jae, and he had once overheard that he was an adopted child to his parents. Yet he had never killed anyone in his life, and still this killer label was pinned on him for no reason. Yeonji suggested talking to his brother Ah-jun to clear everything up, but Ah-jun was always a rule follower. He would never help out with these kinds of things. Yeonji still decided to give it a shot. Fearing the police would keep Ah-jun under surveillance, she secretly slipped a note into his hand. Following that address, Ah-jun reached the designated spot, but the moment he arrived, the police surrounded him from all sides. The real deal was that Ah-jun had handed that note to the police right after reading it. Ah-jun was utterly devastated and barely managed to escape from there. As he reached the mouth of the alleyway, his subordinate blocked his path. Fortunately,
The subordinates trusted Ah-jun, so they quietly let him go. Exhausted, Ah-jun returned to the attic, never expecting that his brother would betray him. Right at that moment, Yeonji walked in bringing someone along, and it was his brother Ah-jun. This was the only way he could evade police surveillance. Ah-jun couldn't believe his eyes and pulled his brother into an emotional hug. Ah-jun had brought along some documents detailing why Ah-jun was being branded a criminal. That was when he learned that the woman at Old Jung's house had died, but Ah-jun had saved the kid back then, and that woman hadn't died at that time. When he was getting ready to save her, Officer G had shown up right then. Standing before their rifles and having no other choice, he had fled. Ah-jun told his brother that he had never killed anyone in his life. Seeing the sincerity in his younger brother's eyes, brother Ah-jun believed him and agreed to help prove his innocence. However, the condition was that from then on, he had to inform him before doing anything. The next day, Ah-jun's older brother gave him some cash and a motorcycle. To prevent anyone from wiretapping phone conversations, he also handed him 2 extra phones. Then they sat down to discuss the case. Up until now, the police thought a single killer had committed all 3 incidents. Finding just one clue would allow his younger brother to prove his innocence. Ah-jun suddenly remembered the broken piece of Hae-jin's fingernail, which he had picked up after returning to the crime scene. If the killer's DNA was present inside that fingernail, he could use it to prove his innocence. Ah-jun quickly rushed to his forensic expert friend to get it tested, and sure enough, the DNA of an unknown person was found there. This confirmed that Ah-jun had zero connection to these serial killings. But who knew that before that report could be filed, Officer G would steal it and hand it straight over to the commissioner. It became clear that he had been the commissioner's spy all along. Seeing the report, the commissioner grew worried. Did that mean someone else murdered his daughter? Just as one crisis ended, another one began. Driver Choi targeted a drunk girl who happened to be an acquaintance of Yeonji and whom she treated like a sister. The girl had no clue what was happening, and the driver took the car to a secluded spot. By the time she realized she was in danger, it was way too late. Within moments, the girl somehow managed to call Yeonji with great difficulty to ask for help, but the phone line cut off. Before Yeonji could reach the scene, the
police tracked the location and rushed there. After a frantic search, Yanji rescued the girl in a critical condition. Thanks to prompt medical treatment by the doctor, the girl survived. Since she was drunk at the time, she hadn't seen the killer's face, but she managed to catch a glimpse of the tattoo on his hand. Yanji brought the sketch of that tattoo drawn by the girl to Ajun. The moment Ajun laid eyes on it, he recognized that it was Driver Choi. He made a bold deduction. If Driver Choi was the killer, his DNA would definitely match the DNA on Hae-jin's fingernail.
That night, Ajun went and staked out beneath Driver Choi's apartment building, his objective being to somehow collect a hair sample from him. To his surprise, Ajun found the door to Driver Choi's room wide open. He walked inside and saw Choi soaked in blood. Right at that moment, a phone ringtone started blaring from atop the room's clock. On the other end of the line was Ah-ho, who was also one of those 9 jurors. The moment Ah-jun hung up the phone, a police car siren could be heard outside, so he fled through the back window. Learning that his own younger brother was secretly pulling off stunts like this infuriated Ah-jun, but being a suspect himself, he was eager to quickly prove his innocence. He brought that phone he got from Ah-ho over to Ah-jun, which contained the complete audio recording of Driver Choi's murder. Everything from the killer knocking on the door to the murder itself was clearly recorded. In their conversation, Choi had stated that he saw the killer in court, but before he could finish his sentence, the killer attacked him from behind. The next day, Ah-jun went back to the crime scene, mimicking the killer's walking posture to look for any clues. Ah-jun kept replaying the audio recording and discovered that the killer's 2 feet had different walking sounds. He immediately called his brother and told him to walk down the stairs according to the recording. After repeated simulations, Ah-jun confirmed that the killer was a man with a limp. Yanji suddenly remembered Manager An. During the dinner, Manager An and Hae-jin had gotten into an argument, and Yanji had noticed that Manager An walked with a limp. Before Ah-jun could investigate further, Manager An suddenly went to the police and surrendered. During the interrogation, he confessed to murdering Driver Choi, but Officer Ji informed him that Choi wasn't dead yet. Hearing that Choi was alive shocked Ah-jun. The police commissioner realized that Manager An was actually trying to shield the real killer. Heading to the hospital, Ah-jun caught sight of Driver Choi because toward the end of that audio recording, someone else's footsteps could be heard. Manager An had only knocked Choi unconscious, but when he woke up, someone else attacked him again. According to the skull fracture report, he had been struck twice. Following Ah-jun's interrogation, Choi revealed that the real killer was In-jae. The next second, Choi went into a seizure and died. Ah-jun's face went completely stone cold, watching the man die right before his eyes. Having no proof that Manager An committed the murder, the police were forced to let him go. But right after walking out of jail, someone kidnapped him. He was kidnapped by Mr. White because he still believed that Manager An and In-jae were in the same league. 20 years ago, the two of them had planned the escape together. Seeing that Manager An was of no use, Mr. White ordered his men to bury him alive. But the next morning, Manager An vanished, as if someone had intentionally saved him. What happened next made the situation even more terrifying. Another fresh murder took place at President Kang's daughter's wedding. President Kang himself was one of those 9 jurors. He never imagined the killer would spike his glass with poison. Panic erupted at the wedding venue due to this sudden incident. Hearing the makeup artist scream, everyone witnessed an even horrifying sight. The bride died right at her wedding venue in her wedding dress, her stomach soaked in blood, and the victim's face carved with that signature smiling cut. The killer was taking this revenge because President Kang had sent rotten meat to the orphanage 20 years ago and profited from it, causing many children to fall ill and die. His name was already on the death list compiled by Ah-jun. On CCTV footage, the police saw that Manager An had gone to the bride's lounge, and Ah-jun had spotted Manager An there too. News of murder after murder made the the remaining jurors restless, feeling like some deep secret was buried within every single one of them. Right at that moment, everyone received a text message. Ah-jun and his brother received the exact same message. Clicking the link revealed the terrifying live streaming session where Manager An had a rope tied around his neck and his hands bound backwards. A countdown was ticking away behind him, and the rope tightened by itself every hour. They had a mere 19 hours left to save Manager An, but tracking down Manager An's location wasn't easy. Yeonji suddenly heard the chiming of a clock in the live stream, a sound Ah-jun found intimately familiar. It was an exact match to the clock tower sound in driver Choi's apartment. The two rushed over to Choi's place and found Manager An hanging. Trying to rescue him, Ah-jun discovered this was actually a dummy or a fake doll set up by the killer in advance. Meanwhile, tracking Manager An's phone location, the police went to a mountain slope and found the phone lying beside a skeleton. That skeleton had Ah-jun's exact same locket hanging around its neck. Meanwhile, with only 4 hours left for Manager An to live, he pissed his pants in terror. Realizing his death was certain, he started begging for forgiveness live on air. It turned out that Manager An was the very person who had leaked all the info to Mr. White, causing their escape plan to fail and their companions to become food for the hunting dogs. He wanted his death to put an end to Eunjae's bloodlust, but before he could finish his sentence, the black curtain behind him suddenly dropped. Seeing this, the journalist stood frozen in his tracks, quickly rushing back to his office to pack his belongings and prepare to flee, taking along that old video footage from the orphanage. He had promised Eunjae that he would expose the director's evil deeds, but for some reason he hadn't published it. When Ah-jun saw the numbers on the wall, he felt like he had seen them before in a dream. Had he grown up in that very orphanage? He rushed to his parents to ask for the address of where he was adopted, but they tried to hide the actual truth. Right then, Yeonji called, having found the address of Manager An's orphanage. Reaching there, Ah-jun saw it was the Hope Orphanage, and old memories started flooding his mind, hitting him with a blinding headache. At the same time, his older brother also got that address and headed toward the orphanage. They had a mere 25 minutes left on the clock. In the corridor, Ah-jun spotted that killer, but chasing after him led right to an ambush. Under the influence of drugs, Ah-jun's consciousness began to fade. At the moment of blacking out, he caught a glimpse of the soles of the killer's shoes. Meanwhile, realizing no one was coming to save him, Manager An chose the path of suicide himself. By the time Ah-jun arrived there, it was way too late. The sound waves shocked Ah-jun back to consciousness, and he called out to his brother for help. The two of them tried to pull Manager An down together, but every effort failed. Out of rage, Ah-jun went out looking for the killer, but unfortunately, Mr. White's men surrounded him.
A fierce physical struggle broke out between the two, but how long could he fight alone? They pinned down both brothers. Desperate to extract the truth, Mr. White wrapped an iron chain around the older brother's neck and started choking him. He still firmly believed that younger brother Ah-jun was the one who murdered his daughter. Just as Ah-jun was on the verge of suffocating to death, the police arrived on the scene. Ah-jun was arrested right then and there as a suspect in the case. After being hauled down to the station, while Officer G was grilling him, Ah-jun was still fretting over his older brother's well-being. Officer G dropped the bomb that his older brother was the one who tipped off the police in advance. Ah-jun was completely stunned. Even Yeonji grilled Ah-jun, demanding to know why he had filed a complaint against his own brother. Without offering any explanation, Ah-jun handed over a video recording to the police. Captured from a drone, that footage clearly laid bare the entire sequence of Oh Jung's murder. The killer was none other than Mr. White himself. Mr. White was even responsible for snuffing out Oh Jung's wife and child. Meanwhile, joining forces with the police commissioner, Mr. White hatched a plot to take Ah-jun out. He stealthily slipped into the interrogation room and choked Ah-jun by the throat. Summoning every ounce of strength, Ah-jun fought back and won his survival battle. Smelling danger, the cops barged in right on time, averting a major disaster. Seeing his scheme crash and burn, the commissioner flew into a blind rage. Thanks to the video footage provided by Ah-jun, he was cleared of all charges.
The next day, executing a search warrant at Mr. White's estate, the police cracked open the deep freeze to find his wife's corpse inside. Ever since Ji-yoon bit the dust, his wife had lost a grip on reality, and in a fit of blind rage, Mr. White had accidentally taken her life. To keep the corpse hidden from prying eyes, he'd shoved it straight into the freezer. Armed with airtight murder evidence, Mr. White went down for life behind bars. But working his corrupt magic, the commissioner helped him fake insanity and land a cozy spot in a psychiatric facility. Yet the danger was far from over, because the Joker killer, the real mastermind, was still running loose. The lives of the remaining jurors hung by a thread, vulnerable at any second. Ah-jun dialed everyone up to issue a warning, but the moment Yeon-ji hung up, she caught the sound of whistling outside. Her sister sensed something sketchy going down too. Stepping outside cautiously to check things out, Yeon-ji realized the killer had already breached the courtyard. She had no idea that death was standing at her doorstep. Before she could scream out for Ah-jun's help, the killer slapped a hand over her mouth. Meanwhile, pulling up to Yeon-ji's place, Ah-jun found the house empty. A photograph sitting on the desk caught his eye. The snapshot featured older sister Un-ting alongside younger brother Un-jae. The kid standing next to them triggered a vague familiarity in Ah-jun. Due to a massive head injury back in his childhood days, Ah-jun's memories were blurry. Struck by a blinding headache, the floodgates opened, and he remembered everything. That kid was none other than his older brother Ah-hoon. He and Un-jae had grown up in the exact same orphanage. The cold hard truth was that Ah-hoon was that very kid adopted by their parents. A wild suspicion gripped Ah-jun's mind. He bolted back home and barged straight into his brother's study. 5 wooden dolls sat lined up on the shelf, each bearing a distinct number carved on the back. His older brother Ah-hoon was that very kid marked number 11. Ah-jun refused to wrap his head around the fact that his own flesh and blood was tangled up in these serial killings. Spotting Yeon-ji's picture tucked inside a drawer, Ah-jun's heart sank. He punched Yeon-ji's number into his phone, but the line went dead. Tracking the GPS coordinates, he saw his brother's ride headed straight into the desolate woods. He burned rubber to get there, only to find Ah-hoon digging a hole in the dirt. He thought Yeon-ji had already bought the farm, but digging deeper revealed it was just an animal carcass. Yeon-ji stepped out from the shadows, completely unharmed. Realizing the killer was lurking nearby, Ah-hoon clamped a hand over her mouth just to keep her safe. Ah-jun confronted his brother, demanding to know why he had lived under a fake identity. Ah-hoon copped to the fact that he really was number 11, adopting a new persona simply to bury his dark past. He swore to his younger brother on his life that he wasn't the killer. On the drive back, Ah-hoon's phone buzzed with a text message containing a photo of him paired with Yeon-ji's sister. He realized the girl was in mortal danger. Slamming on the gas, they raced back home, rushed up to the attic, and found an iron cabinet planted right in the center with a pool of blood trickling out underneath. With trembling hands, Ah-hoon unlocked the door to reveal a gut-wrenching sight. Yeon-ji's sister had been butchered. Collapsing to the floor, Yeon-ji bawled her eyes out uncontrollably. Ah-hoon felt utterly crushed too, knowing how deeply the girl looked up to him. Ah-hoon figured that because he had saved Yeon-ji, the killer had wiped out her sister just to punish him. Grilled by the questions, the older brother spilled every detail about their orphanage days. He copped to knowing Un-jae back then, but claimed they never crossed paths after the adoption. Having built a comfortable life as a judge, he'd buried the past, meaning he had no motive to go on a killing spree. Those dolls were just kept around as memorabilia. Seeing the raw honesty in his brother's eyes,
Ah-jun decided to trust him. The next day, heading back up to that attic, Ah-hoon found some writing scrawled across the cabinet door. Before biting the dust, Yeon-ji's sister must have scribbled a final message. It simply read, Kao-un, which likely pointed right toward the older sister, Kao-yeon-ji. Shook up by her sister's murder, Yeon-ji fell into a deep depression, so for her own safety, Ah-hoon let her crash at his place. Another juror, Ah-ho, used to chat regularly with Yeon-ji. Ah-ho seemed like a solid guy. Even though his parents ditched him as a kid, he grew up cracking smiles. Yeon-ji pressed her mother about what went down 20 years ago. Her mom dropped the bombshell that she
used to be an orphanage nurse, but a ton of kids perished due to a lack of medicine. She wanted to blow the whistle with a journalist's help, but it went nowhere. Mr. White hit her with heavy threats, forcing her to zip it. Meanwhile, word hit the police station that the journalist had vanished off the face of the earth. Station CCTV footage showed him stashing something inside a locker before it vanished into thin air. A June spotted his brother's silhouette flickering across the footage. Digging deeper into the probe, it turned out the older brother had visited driver Choi's crib right before he checked out. Growing suspicious of his own blood, a June tore into the bedroom closet to search. Finding no trace of any black clothes, he trusted his gut, pried open a hidden compartment, and dragged out that exact black outfit. The yellow paint caked on the bottom of the boots matched the killer's footwear down to a millimeter. Unable to stomach the doubt, a June went straight to confront his brother, but Yanji dropped the news that he had just stepped out moments ago. Flying down to the garage, a June realized he was too late. He tailed his ride and watched his brother pull up to a desolate spot. Out of nowhere, a dark-clothed figure materialized and drove a knife straight into his brother's gut. Ignoring the killer entirely, a June sprinted toward his bleeding brother. Hospitalized just in the nick of time, Ahun cheated death. Doctors extracted a jagged blade fragment straight from his stomach. Forensic breakdown identified the weapon as a specialized butcher knife used for slicing fish. That immediately jogged Arjun's memory about the Japanese restaurant chef. Charging down there, he interrogated the chef. Drawing a blanket first, he eventually rooted out the weapon hidden in the kitchen through a clever bluff. Cornered, the chef took the fall and confessed to being the killer, but Arjun saw right through it. The chef was just stepping up to take the rap for someone else. Inspecting the serial numbers carved on the blade, Arjun tracked it down to a blacksmith shop where records showed the knife had been purchased by none other than Unjai. That night, a memory clicked for Yunji. Aho had hung out with them once before. Sounding out the name Aho revealed it was practically an anagram for Kao Unji. Pulling up Aho's file in the police database, Arjun saw that Aho's folder actually featured a picture of Unjai. Recovering on his hospital bed, Ahun confessed that Aho was the one who shanked him. Explaining away the yellow boot paint, he claimed he had picked up those stains while tracking the killer's trail. Cops fanned out across the city to collar Aho, but the fugitive was operating under a completely fabricated identity. Meanwhile, springing him from the psychiatric lockdown, Mr. White's crew wheeled him out to freedom. Unjai was now steering his revenge plot into the final stretch. He had also snatched up the journalist and Yunji's mother. Anyone tied to the old orphanage was disappearing one by one. The commissioner received a video drop from Unjai containing raw proof of his own criminal rap sheet. Desperate to silence him, the commissioner set up a face-to-face with Mr. White to hunt down Unjai, who was demanding a massive 200 million won ransom for the footage. Hitting the drop coordinates, they found all the missing orphanage victims locked inside cages like animals. Stepping out from the shadows, Unjai confronted him face to face.
Catching a glimpse of the killer's face made the commissioner realize that the murderer had been lurking right under his nose this entire time. He handed the cash over to Unjai, but checking the bundles of money, Unjai didn't stick to his original plan. Yet the commissioner had already anticipated this, knowing Mr. White would definitely show up to bail him out. But even after waiting ages, Mr. White didn't show, and as the commissioner panicked and tried to bolt, Unjai's henchman hit him with an injection, knocking him out cold. Waking up, he found himself locked inside a jail cell. Mr. White was lying nearby, battered and bruised. Just moments earlier, he had walked right into a trap set by Unjai, getting his ankle snagged in a floor snare. The noise from their brawl woke everyone else up. They were shaking in their boots because a time bomb had been rigged outside. Unjai yelled that if they could pick one person among themselves to offer up as a sacrificial lamb, the rest would walk away alive. If they failed to make a call within 10 minutes, everyone
everyone would go up in a fiery explosion. In sheer panic, they started pointing fingers at one another, dragging all their dirtiest secrets out into the light. First up was the fortune teller woman, who had once witnessed the kids' escape attempt hit a dead end. Unjai had begged her for help back then, but instead of lending a hand, she told Mr. White to snuff Unjai out, predicting through her twisted vision that Unjai would grow up to be a cold-blooded killer. Right after her, Yanji's mother was called out for being the orphanage nurse whose negligence led numerous kids to shuffle off this mortal coil without any medical care. Gutted by guilt, she had reached out to a local journalist. The journalist dug up the dirt and logged all the facts, but the commissioner and a government minister slapped him with hush money to bury the story. And that very minister turned out to be none other than Ah-jun's own mother. Seeing the clock ticking down, Mr. White suddenly grabbed Yanji. He was mind-flicked because he was the very guy who had violated Yanji's mother 20 years ago. To shield her daughter, the mother had lied, claiming her dad was dead. Learning her father's true identity completely shattered Yanji. Right at that instant, Ah-jun arrived at the orphanage. Spotting him through the CCTV camera, Unjai made it clear that Ah-jun was also on his hit list for revenge. Without missing a beat, Unjai smashed the remote button, but the bomb didn't go off. Sprinting over, he discovered the explosive had been deactivated beforehand. Ah-jun had teamed up with his brother earlier to play a trick on Unjai. That was how the true mastermind behind the serial killings was finally slapped in cuffs. The commissioner rushed to bark orders to slap a mental illness label on Unjai and slam the case shut in a hurry. Down in the interrogation room, Unjai was calmly spilling the beans on all his kills, even taking selfies alongside his corpses. Why had Ah-jun spent all this time mistaking himself for Unjai? Because back when they were kids,
Ah-jun took a brutal blow to the head, shoved down by Unjai himself. Losing his memory, Unjai had fed him every detail of his own life story, tricking Ah-jun into believing he was that kid from the orphanage. Uncovering the raw truth boiled Ah-jun's blood. Then, Unjai brought up that special locket shared by him and his siblings. After the sister bought the farm, Mr. White had snatched it away, but only Ah-jun held on to the genuine piece. Ah-jun pressed his brother about the locket. The older brother claimed it was his most prized possession, handing it over because he loved Ah-jun like his own kid brother. Ah-jun felt utterly sick to his stomach, beating himself up over why he had ever doubted his brother. Thinking the case was wrapped up, as they escorted Unjai away, Unjai suddenly shoved Ah-jun down a flight of stairs. Taking a hard tumble to the head unlocked every single memory in Ah-jun's mind. It all came flooding back. The older brother said, "Before you rolled into our family, you were stuck at the Hope Orphanage. There was a seriously twisted monster there." The truth was that older brother Ah-jun was the puppet master, pulling all the strings behind the scenes. They had orchestrated this entire revenge game together, but Unjai's internal rage burned way hotter than his brother had bargained for. As things spiraled out of control, Ah-jun intentionally had himself stabbed just to lock down his brother's trust. To throw the cops off the scent and buy time for his revenge, Ah-jun had framed his younger brother Unjai as the killer. Even Unjai getting tossed in the slammer was baked into their master plan, setting the stage to take out Mr. White locked behind bars. For 20 years, Unjai had been waiting for this exact moment, but running on fumes physically, he couldn't overpower Mr. White. In a final desperate move, he grabbed a sharpened toothbrush rolling on the floor and drove it straight into Mr. White's neck. The moment Mr. White kicked the bucket, this revenge saga drew to a close, and Unjai breathed his last right there beside him. With Unjai dead, that Japanese chef checked out via suicide, since his older brother had perished in that very same orphanage. In the end, Ah-jun walked right into a police station and turned himself in. The ultimate goal behind his elaborate game was to rip the lid off that hellhole of an orphanage and expose it to the entire world. Ah-jun got hit with a life sentence behind bars, and the rest of those corrupt villains got their comeuppance too. Ah-jun even slapped the handcuffs onto his own mother's wrists with his bare hands. Wrapping up the story, Yun-ji teamed up with all the shattered families from the orphanage to launch a welfare center and orphanage. She would dedicate the rest of her days to sheltering abandoned kids so they could at least experience a bright and decent childhood.